Nebraska Preps postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
You heard the big voice guy. That's my main man, Jacob Padilla, as he joins me for our weekly podcast, Nebraska Preps. Hopefully you like our new audio-visual effects, man. We're trying to be all professional for you fine folks, but as we welcome you into another week, we have officially transitioned. We are now into hoops. JP, not often you get a little bit of a downtime to come join me, but how are you?
Good, yeah. I feel like a little bit more in my environment, a little bit here, more in my element here as we transition to hoops. Football, that's your area. I'm just there to provide some support. Feel like I can contribute a little
context?
bit more now.
No, I don't see. You know what? I think you sell yourself short because I would talk football with you. And so here's the thing. This is what I think makes you unique. You understand whether you're the driver, the passenger, the passing lane, whether you're supposed to go 45, whether you can go 75. Your situational awareness is, I think, what lends itself to you being so credible, right? Like, and sometimes you sell yourself short, right? You know where you're at.
And that's I think that's the important. I know what I know and what I don't know, so I try to stay away from what I don't know and just touch on the stuff that I do.
Yeah, well, you know what? That we're back for another week, and it has been hoops. It's so tough, right, to get a gauge early just because sometimes you're waiting for guys to come back from another sport. Sometimes you have early season injuries. Sometimes it's just rust.
Well, look at Beddington straight off the football field, their entire lineup.
Yeah.
Go and get smacked at a good Wahoo team. First game of the season. I'm sure most of those guys hadn't touched a basketball in I don't know how long.
I didn't even get a chance to tell you this before it started, but in my opinion, we had them in the top 3 preliminarily. That may be the deepest team in Class B.
They got a lot of pieces.
Wait, did we decide are they playing Class B? No, they're playing C1.
Wahoo?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they got a lot of pieces. And, I mean, briefly, how about Marcus Glock, the start he's gotten off to? Back-to-back 20-point games?
Could easily play 9. It's typically not his style, but they could. That is the deepest team in C1 right now, and that's no disrespect to basically anyone else out there.
C1's going to be fun this year, especially
it's highly
C1
competitive.
and C2 with some of the reclassifying from D2 to C2, or from D1 to C2 with Bergen or House Dodge and Humphrey, Lindsay, Holy Family. Both those moving up to C2, that makes it pretty darn strong at the top.
To the victor goes moving up in classes, right?
Yep.
So where do you want to start, man? I mean, current coaches poll. I mean, you probably make Scott 1 and B.
Yeah.
Roncalli or Platteview.
So I did get to see Plattview's season opener against Elkhorn North, and they are what we thought they are. They're Connor Milliken putting up a ton of points, Draper hitting some important threes.
I'm a big Draper guy, but we've talked about this X factor before, and he showed it down the stretch the last third of the season last year. Weeblehouse is going to make them different. He really started to come along late in the season a year ago, and he's picked up where he's left off. No question he's the X factor because Milliken can't do it on his own.
Yeah, and that's how they beat Elkhorn North, is they had a few other guys step up around. Connor at 33, but they had a few guys hit enough shots.
And pencil him in for high 20s every night out, right? So
33 and 25 in his first 2 games. So ho-hum is kind of what he's going to do. But, yeah, I think Scott's got the best starting 5 in Class B for sure. Roncalli, I need to see Roncalli. They've got a lot of pieces that I like. They've got some young guys that we'll see if they can provide some depth. But Jake Orr, we talked about Jake Orr's. If Connor's the best player in Class B, Jake Orr might be next. He's certainly up there. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good. That's top of the class right now for sure.
And then it's interesting because I watched Scott live and in person. They had I wouldn't call it a scrimmage, but they had the exhibition against Westside, and they took it on the chin pretty good. And Westside playing without their full complement of players won that game in relative ease, but you could tell that Scott is one of those teams. They have a lot of good pieces. Now they got to figure out what's going to happen in the backcourt. They really struggled with ball pressure and making decisions off the dribble. And
that is, they don't necessarily have a true point guard. James Ninifu is kind of more of a combo, kind of a long, rangy wing. J.J. Farron's more of a spot-up shooter than a great off-the-dribble guy. And then Grant Dvorak's kind of the same deal, where he's a great wing more so than a strong ball handler.
And that kind of manifests itself. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out kind of in Class B, right? Because it was really, really apparent in that game a couple Saturdays ago that ball handling and kind of dribble penetration. They won't see a lot of West Sides in Class B, so, I mean, we'll see what happens.
And that's fortunately they can play through their front court a little bit too and kind of lessen the pressure on the backcourt to create. You can play inside out to create some openings with Mitch Scholl and Jake Brack both kind of stepping forward.
I really like Brack.
He's got big upside.
I just have watched him since he's been young, for a long time. Very recognizable. I don't think he got near enough touches against Westside, and I know Coach would say, hey, listen, we got to be able to get him the ball in scoring position, but he's fantastic, man. He's a good player. He's a really good player.
Yeah, good height, about 6'6". He's really filled out. He's gotten a lot stronger than where he was as a freshman, where that was kind of one of his biggest weaknesses was couldn't stay healthy. He was getting pushed around. Now he's got a varsity body. He's ready to kind of – he can score inside. He can step out and knock down a jumper if you leave him open, and then he can go clear the glass on the defensive end as well.
Yeah, so, Platteview and Ron Colley and Scott, it's early, right? Goose-egged in the in the loss column. Let me jump down real quick before we get to A. I want to talk about C1 because you and I were talking, it's not really off air, off pod, about how fantastic C1 will be. We both like Wahoo. Auburn isn't going anywhere. They would probably be my preseason one. But then it's probably we both like Concordia. Yeah. And we like Wahoo. That is going to be sensational.
Well, Kearney Catholic's got Brett Mahoney back.
Yeah, that's
Ashland
true.
Greenwood has Cale Jacobson back. Great, credit to him coming back from that torn ACL. Scored went over 1,000 points, I think, in their season opener. Yeah, great to see him back on the court.
And Milford, too, right?
Milford's got most of their guys back from last year. So that's already 6 teams that we've mentioned. And there's some other good ones,
C1
too.
will be sensational.
Yeah.
that will be. Coach Weeks is – see, I think this year, and his style is his style, but I actually think they can score the basketball. It will be interesting to see if he chooses to play that way.
You would hope they would open it up just a little bit more with kind of the personnel they have, and I don't know if they've got necessarily kind of the backline defenders, the size that they've had the last couple of years. Brett Baltensperger's kind of been the backup. He's not quite the physical presence that Daniel Frary was or that Josh Lambert was a couple years ago.
Call on Lambert 2 years
so
ago.
It is going to be more guard-driven, and maybe that does mean, like, hey, we're going to continue to control possession and wait for the last shot. Or it means, hey, Maverick, kind of go ahead and let's see what you can do.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Maverick Binder. Played against him and with him in summer. Man, you almost have to give him the keys.
Well, and I think so the Bison freshman tournament where you've got 8th graders and 9th graders playing at the back in May or whatever it was, I think that's a really cool deal. And I think for them in particular, basically for that Auburn team, it was Maverick, go create. They're setting ball screens. Yep. They're running every play through him. I think that kind of experience can be really beneficial for a player like him who was a secondary supporting piece last year where he spot up, play off of Cam, play off of Ryan. Now it's kind of more, hey, Ryan's still there on the wing, but Maverick, this is your show now. We're going to put the ball in your hands. You go create.
And playing with that 15U Adidas team last summer, he's seen high caliber competition, right? And just growing up, I mean, he's pretty much played against a lot of those guys from the T&E Express organization where a lot of those guys are playing at the varsity level now. He's seen elite level competition. I don't think he'll have any problems assuming the role as kind of the lead dog for that Auburn bunch.
No, for sure. So, yeah, I mean, C1's going to be fun this year. There's a lot of good
wide
teams.
Open. Let's jump up to A,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, Bellevue West, you start there. I think originally before this last 10 days, you probably have either had Westside or Millard North in some form or fashion. Scott belongs in that discussion. Prep continuing to be able to win close games.
You mean Pius instead of Scott?
Yeah, did I say Scott?
Yeah.
I meant Pius.
Yeah.
One of those private schools that wear green. That's what I meant.
Sure.
But for sure, Pius. Hard to match their size and length. We'll see what happens at point guard. They don't really have a true ball handler, but we'll see what happens when a combo guard decides that he's going to transfer and see what happens with how they can play. That is their size and length is going to be tough to deal with at Pius.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, it starts with Bellevue West at this point. Just from what we've seen, I think Josiah Dotzler, we were wondering what's it going to look like him kind of stepping into that role. Well, 22-5, really efficient first game. Then near triple-double with 13, 10, and 8, 4 steals in their second game. Obviously, not the toughest competition just yet, but the ability to control the game in a lot of different ways, be efficient scoring. That's what we need to see out of Josiah, and he certainly showed that the first week. And then obviously you've got all the other pieces that can step up. William Kyle had a big game, dunking all over the place. Had some other guys that could contribute.
His ability to run the floor and play on both ends. Yeah. He defends the rim on one end, and he can go get it on the other. He's going to be a very, very interesting piece to watch. He will elevate his stock, in my opinion, tremendously. As already a college commit, people are going to come back and take a look at William Kyle.
Yeah, well, with Frankie Fiddler gone, there are a few more offensive touches for William this year if he's ready to step into that role. And so he's gonna get every chance to prove himself that he's more than just a defensive stopper and a rim runner. Yeah,
the teams I think in the next tier obviously saw each other in Columbus with Millard North and Westside playing in that triangular. Millard North pulled away late. Westside's inability, I think, to stop dribble penetration and their shot selection, just a total lack of discipline. And I think I can be hard on these guys a little bit just because I see them all the time. But that may be it's early, and Jason Green really didn't assert himself. But for
a little bit of foul trouble early too.
For the role guys, not too bad for Millard North. They played well.
We talked about David Harmon all spring and summer, and sure enough, you're 24 points, just getting to the rim at will, 8 of 9 from the free throw line, 8 of 12 from the field. That you can't ask for much more than 5 assists as well. And then Nick Dolezal, 17 points, 7 rebounds. Jason Green was really efficient, but like you said, only 13 points, only took 6 shots.
Yeah. Very efficient on the offensive end. Kind of had some offensive lulls and stretches, but mostly it was due to playing time because of foul trouble.
Yeah, Jason, 39 points, 20 rebounds in 2 games. Obviously, the first one wasn't nearly as tough as the second, but 26, 10, and 5, I believe, in that game. Pretty darn solid start to his senior year for sure.
Yeah, so early on capping of those two teams, I think there's a couple of things that come to mind. Number one, we'll see what happens with Westside when they get their full complement. They'll get
Caleb Benning probably would have helped a little bit on Harmon, keeping him out of the lane.
No question. He's an elite level defender, probably the best defender, I think, the best on the ball defender in the Metro for Omaha Westside and maybe across the board. But their thing is, outside of what he may bring in terms of ball distribution and running that offense, 2 things. Number one, Westside has to figure out shot selection, and will they commit to playing defense? They're undersized, and they have a lot of guys that can score potentially. How they share the basketball in terms of distribution and stop dribble penetration will be huge for them going forward. Millard North played exactly like who I think they're going to be. They prefer tempo. They have a grab-and-go guy in Jason Green. They have guys that like to get downhill with really one good shoot, what I would call a consistent knockdown shooter in Mosser. They have some pieces. If you don't pressure them and force them to handle the basketball, you could be in a little bit of trouble because they have they got a couple of guys that can get you a few different ways.
Yeah, and like you said, they transition. That's where they want to start.
Yeah, when they were able to create tempo, and I think the composure got away from Westside a little bit and able to kind of slow it down, they really pulled away. It was a 4 or 5 point game at the half, if I remember right, somewhere around there, and just the second half of Millard North controlling. And Westside's a team that likes to play fast. You just can't give up those kinds of easy buckets, allowing guys to get downhill. And you let Millard North play with some confidence, that thing snowballed on them in a hurry.
And that was an 80 to 67 win for Millard North. They won their first game 74-45 against Lincoln High. And David Harmon again 11 points, so 2 double-digit games to start the season. Like I said, Jason Green's 26-10, 5, 2, just doing everything, just dominating that game. Westside opened with an 89-30 win against Columbus. So that meant they had to head out to Columbus to decide that.
Yeah, that track,
pods are fun, right?
I like it's fine, right? I mean, I watched the girls too, and so I saw Westside and Millard North and Lincoln High and Columbus and kind of that little pod deal, and I actually kind of like that.
Well, so Westside was 17 of 28 from 3 against Columbus, and then only 6 of 23 against Millard North.
Yeah,
that's
shot selection, JP. Like, I can't stress it enough. When they share the basketball and they're unselfish, they're different. If you have a couple guys or 3 or 4 that kind of lack a little discipline, it can get ugly for that team in a hurry because they are undersized. The X factor for them, no question, is going to be Logan Wilson. He's the one guy. He's got good length. I think he's a tremendous defender. He's got a lot of versatility. When he plays well, I have a feeling that team will play well.
Yep, 17 points, 5 threes in the first game.
In the win, yeah.
In the win, and then 0 points, 5 fouls, and nothing else really in the loss. So,
yeah.
And like you said, that's a team that he is really the only back line of defense. So if he's getting fouls instead of blocks, and you're not pressuring the ball, you're not keeping them out of the lane, there's really not going to be much that Westside can do. So they've got to have 5 guys on a string. They've got to make that tough, and then be able to put Logan in situations where he can rotate and get protect the rim in good situations.
Completely
good
agree.
Positions. So,
and the next tier probably Pius and Prep, right, in some order.
Yeah,
Prep
Pius
continuing to win close games, and
we can go
Pius
there.
with Fremont and was it Fremont and who was the first one against Fremont and North Platte?
Yeah. So, they 2-0 start. Both double-digit wins, but neither against another top team. So we'll kind of see, like you said, how they continue to come together as a team. But, yeah, we can go to the Prep.
They've got an
next.
interesting one. You talk about contrasting styles and a little smaller team. Pius got Omaha South, who's off to a little bit of a shaky start. Got to take better care of the basketball, right? Those young guys grew up in a hurry last year. They're now sophomores this year and juniors. Shot selection and value in the basketball would be big for Omaha South.
Well, and JoJo Ford isn't going to play until the second semester, so that really hurts too. He was kind of part of that reason why, they might be ready for a leap this year as kind of another veteran guard to allow the younger guys to play complementary roles. But, yeah, South, they lost to Gretna in the first round of the OPS Jamboree, which then Gretna turned around and got smacked by Omaha North.
Yeah.
53-38. Apparently Gretna just did not handle the pressure well and did not shoot the ball well. So that is a bad combination. But that set up a championship game between Omaha North and Omaha Central for the Jamboree title. And, was that we'll just call that one a defensive struggle.
Yeah, not a lot of quality shooting. And that one, which I think caught me by surprise a little bit. I mean, you know what you're kind of getting from Jaden Dawson, I think, and Mason Strong, who right now is trying to be the Metro's best-kept secret, right?
He had 33 in their opener, 23 in the second game. Yeah. So 56 points in his first 2 games, pretty good start. But you look at the championship game and the kind of the main guys for each team, Jay Dawson and P.J. Davis, both more shot attempts than points. Same thing for Mason Strong. more shot attempts than points.
Yeah, PJ. I almost said Patrick.
Well, that's what they got on the box score.
PJ going 2 of 11, I think, and Jaden Dawson going 6 of 18. They're probably going to shoot it better than that. The key for me in that one is for North to be the team that they want to be. I think Mason Strong, Dale Thomas, and Keyshawn have to find a way to complement each other. It can't be high volume, not a lot of efficiency. You know, Mason Strong, I think he was 6 of 17 from the field and 0 of 5 from 3.
Yep.
You have to find a way to be a little bit more efficient in that one than I think if North's going to be who they want to be.
So both teams were 16 of 46 from the field. Both teams only made 2 3-pointers.
Yeah.
Difference was the free throw line. It's not like Central shot well. They just got there more. They were 10 of 21 compared to 6 of 14 for North. And that was a 44-40 win for Central, where it was down to the wire. It was close late, and Central won the fourth quarter 11-6 to win that thing. And it was a one-possession game. Central had a 2-point lead late, and I believe DeAndre Brody got a steal and a bucket.
Yeah, he's kind of the X factor for them, right? With Jackson Page moving on to Millard North, DeAndre kind of assumes that next distributor, ball handler, a little bit of a smaller guard, but has got a lot of playing experience in terms of playing against good players. He grew up playing against bigger, stronger guys his whole life.
And that's what you need. You don't want to put too much on Jay Dawson's plate. You want him to be able to be free, play on the wing, to go create, take his shots, as opposed to kind of having to be the main ball handler and run everything himself. You want him focused on scoring.
Yeah, and if you've been listening to this podcast at all, the next team that we're going to talk about, JP, you kind of nailed him as the X factor and the guy to keep, not necessarily the X factor, but the guy to keep an eye on in terms of his evolution, if he's going to take the next step. And with their preseason injuries, it's even more magnified. Martell Evans has got to be the guy from Omaha Creighton Prep to complement Jungers, especially with O'Malley hurt now. Am I saying it right? Is it Jabanato?
No, I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. That's how it's spelled.
Hurting his ACL in the fall.
And Aiden Miller is a guy that would have played this year who tore his ACL for the second time back in the summer.
Changed that team dramatically.
Marquise Tolliver, injured,
got his
week of tryouts.
Broken leg.
Yeah, so that's 3 guys that would be
playing for them. And now O'Malley on the shelf.
First game, Casey goes down, hurts his ankle. So that's 4 guys right now that would be rotation players for Prep that aren't in the lineup. So that's Josh Utke's going to have to do a good job this year, kind of manipulating that lineup, finding the right rotations, finding enough depth to be able to get through the season. But man,
finding ways to win close
exactly
games.
What they did. And so they were part of the Grand Island, Lincoln East, Prep, and Elkhorn South kind of little pod system. And 3 of the 4 games were determined by game winners. In the first round, you mentioned Martell Evans. They were tied with Grand Island 60-all late, and Grand Island had the ball. Prep got a steal, run out. Martell layup at the buzzer. He finished with the team high 19 in that one. Really efficient, 7 of 12 from the field, 4 or 5 from the line, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. That's kind of what he's going to be. He's going to be a double-digit scorer. He's going to rebound. He's going to get some assists. He's going to get some steals. He's just going to be an athlete and a force in transition. And then Luke Jungers did what he needed to, 17 points, efficient shooting, 9 rebounds. I think Isaac Trout had 34 in that game, but it wasn't quite enough. And then on the other side there, Lincoln East at Elkhorn South, same thing, tied at 60-all at last possession. This time Lincoln East had the ball, kind of worked it around, pitched it to my guy Carter Templemeyer in the wing and drove in.
You've seen a lot of Templemeyer, haven't you, as his coach in the summer?
Yeah, laid it up with 2 seconds left for the go-ahead bucket, and then the heave at the buzzer didn't fall. So it's 62-61.
He's an easy guy to cheer for, isn't he?
Oh, for sure. He's one of the most competitive kids I've been around.
I kind of go off your vibe because you're a good judge of character. I can kind of loving on him, coaching him. He's an easy guy to cheer for.
Oh, for sure. 17 points in that game plus the game winner. I'm assuming he started first varsity start there, I think. So, yeah.
I think he's paid his dues.
Yeah.
I never had a chance to really be the guy. Could be good on him.
Yeah. I think he's going to have a really solid season. And in that one, So Elkhorn South lost, and they go third place game was the only one that I was able to go to because of my schedule. It was Grand Island against Elkhorn South at Lincoln East, and man, Grand Island got off to a good start, and then Elkhorn South just ran away with it from there. Just shot the ball really well, and Alec Noonan, he had 12 points in the third quarter when they really kind of broke the game wide open. They were up 5 at halftime.
Saying, hey, listen, you can recruit my brother in football. I'm the hooper in the family. Come check me out.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how that worked out because you look, they're twins, but like Maverick,
they're completely different
body types.
Right? One's gravitated towards one sport, the other.
Well, and Alec played football last year. This year, it's all basketball.
And I asked his parents, especially Danny. I said, "Hey, listen." I said, "How do you do it?" Right? I'm really taking notes, right? As a guy that's trying to stay away and let his kid grow. And he said, "Hey, you know what? For us, it's easy. Alec likes hoops. Yeah. Maverick likes football. They're two completely different kids. It makes it easy."
And Maverick was up in there in the stands kind of cheering his brother on. So Alec had 11 in their first game, then 20, team high 20 in the Grand Island game. So he's another guy that I was really impressed with this summer compared to where he was the previous summer. He was one of the most improved players, I think, within the OSA program. Yeah. And I think he's, again, going to have another really good season. And
not afraid to work either.
And Elkhorn South's depth. They had some early foul trouble in that one. They had a couple guys in street clothes on the bench. And Henry Burt coming off the bench, 11 points, doing some work in the post. They had, again, one of my Caden Stone, who played for me this summer as well, didn't score in their season opener, came in with some of the injuries, got the call, and he had 8 points, knocked down 2 threes, had a nice finish in transition, and he was guarding Isaac Trout for some of that game. So Trout had 28, but only one other player on Grand Island made more than one bucket, and he made 2. So that's not going to work when your second leading scorer has 5 points. And they made Trout be really inefficient. He struggled. The shots
almost the anti of what we saw last year when he was extremely efficient, kind of assuming a new role.
Yeah, like every single one of his buckets was like, whoa. That's how difficult the shot attempts were because of the way that Elkhorn South was defending and the way that Grand Island wasn't able to keep the defense honest there. So they're going to have to shoot the ball a little bit better. A few other guys are going to have to step up for that team. Andy Poss isn't going to be eligible until his second semester. The St. Paul transfer, who is one of their better on-ball guys. So he's going to help them out later on in the season, but they're going to need a little bit more. And then so that was kind of the only one that wasn't a thriller. And then in the championship game of that little pod, it was Lincoln East against Prep. And again, tie ball game, last possession, it's 51-all. Prep works the ball around, swings it. Sean Ramachandran finds himself open, buries a 3 at the buzzer for the win. So Sean's a guy that I'm really happy for because of the pandemic and his family situation. He hasn't played basketball since his sophomore year. Yeah. He didn't play the last 2 summers, and he didn't play last year. He's a good tennis player.
I know you have an affinity for him. You nailed the name pronunciation.
Well, and he's I know him from like OSA when I first started.
You nailed the name pronunciation. That's why Jacob Padilla is one of the best in the business, ladies and gentlemen.
But he's a guy that I knew back when he was in like 6th grade because when I first started coaching at OSA, he was on the team below mine. He and his brother Nathan. So we would practice with him all the time. I think they moved out to California and then came back, and he's been at Prep. And he was a good player as a freshman, had a really good summer that year. But then with the pandemic, it just kind of derailed his basketball career. So it's good to see him back out there playing and have a moment like that in your second varsity game. That's big time.
Yeah, so that's kind of the top 6 or 7. And depending on how you feel about Papillion, they stubbed their toe against – hey, listen, this isn't Helmstetter. This isn't Alton Mason. This Northeast bunch is interesting, and this schedule shakes out to where it's early, right? They got South Sioux. They beat Papio. They got Columbus coming up. That's definitely a winnable game. Then they go Northwest Lincoln High Bryan. They've got a chance to get off a really good start, man. Do you like this Rocket bunch?
I do. I was there for the first half of that Papio game. It was back and forth, and Christian Wynn, I think, had 15 in the first half. A long, kind of rangy wing there. He knocked down a couple of threes, got to the rim a few times for some tough finishes. They play a 5-out style where where Porter Basil is the tallest player on the team, and he's looking to more attack the basket, spot up on the perimeter more so than do work inside. So they can be a tough group to defend when they've got 5 guys. A lot of 3-4 of those guys can probably shoot the ball fairly well. You got Xander Beard, who's a really crafty scorer. So they've definitely got some pieces. Jalen Lang's a junior guard that can play a little bit for them. So they're going to be tough. They're 2-0. Lincoln Southwest 2-0, and Pius 2-0. So good start for the
Southwest. We thought a year ago was ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
This is a good Southwest bunch.
Yeah, and they haven't even they had 2 wins. I think one of them was against Padilla and the Vista South, so that's a quality win. It's probably the best win of the group that we either them or Papio, like we just talked about, of those 3 Lincoln teams that started off 2-0. But yeah, they and I feel like they haven't really clicked yet either. Like they've had different guys that played well in each of the games. Nobody's had real monster
It's a good
game.
win against Kearney too.
Yeah, so that's a really good start for them. That's a team that we both liked, I think, based on what we saw from their different players in the summer, whether it was in June or with their summer teams. So
I'll be curious to see. I'm watching them when they go to Omaha South on Saturday. They're at the Packers on the 11th. Let me know how they can travel. You know, Rylan, who is very familiar with playing with a lot of these guys in the Metro, coming into that environment. That Southeast team is tough. If those are kind of the top 8, probably Papillion and North, or because of Papillion's start, and they got a brutal schedule. I mean, they'll book in this thing with Bellevue West and Millard North this week. So if you're a Monarch fan, hang on. And then Omaha North gets West Side on Thursday. That's gonna be a salty West Side bunch. Who gets Benning back this week? I'll be curious to see what happens. No love lost, obviously, between the 2 schools. I mean, how do you see the back end of that deal in the top 10 if it is in fact for you, Papio and North, with a big week for both teams?
Yeah, so Northeast is in there, obviously 2-0 start.
I kind of liked them. I put them at 8.
Yeah,
so I have Southwest at 7 and Northeast at 8.
Yeah, so Papio, North, Lincoln East, I think, is probably in that mix.
Good call. I'm a little iffy on East. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
no Jacobson, no Greasel. Well, Sam, no Reckaway. I'm going way back with old school Spartans, but
yeah, you lost me on that last one. I was with you.
Hey, Reckaway, he was a phenom, man. He was that was back when I wasn't even a kid yet when he was doing work. But the Spartans got a lot of history. So if you like those teams,
but there are Gretna, Papio South, Papio, like all those teams are kind of in that mix. Are all 1-1 in that area. They, I think there's a lot of questions, but they've got a lot of pieces that if it comes together, they could be the top 10, 12-ish type teams. But I think that's what's going to be interesting is that next group, 8 to 15 or so. I think there are a lot of teams that could stake claims for those spots.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, it's a heck of a week. We've cubed the whole thing up for you in terms of giving you a rundown. We'll be back next week. There's a reason he's the best in the business. I think the world of him. That's Jacob Padilla. I'm old DB. We didn't even get into his Phoenix Suns. They just keep winning, and it's
the levers out of you, right?
They did. They did, right? Like, I may owe you an apology before it's over because they're pretty good. We'll be back next week. We'll preview, we'll recap, we'll make sure that you're covered from the rooter to the tutor. That's my man, Jacob Padilla. I'm old DB. We'll be back next week with Nebraska Preps postgame.
A Hurrdat Media Production.